Are you forcing others to try to see things the way that you see them? Are you forcing others to basically step into the way that you think, the way that you act, the way that you behave? If so, I'm here to invite you to put your energy back to you, back onto you, back into your way of showing up. The only way to be able to allow someone else to expand their level of consciousness to align with yours is for you to fully embody what it is that you know as true. Okay? That is the only way. A lot of high performers with perfectionism have this compulsion and need to force their own way of looking at things onto others. Okay? That might show up as you kind of imposing and blaming and projecting whatever it is that you believe onto others. And this is really frustrating, isn't it? And it's frustrating because it's actually impossible for someone to emotionally be kind of captivated enough to see things the way that you see them. Most people don't change or expand their consciousness or begin seeing things differently without some sort of emotional experience that made them actually make that leap. Just think about yourself. Your journey throughout life and your journey throughout, everything that you've experienced, and your consciousness journey has probably expanded and you've probably grown in some aspects, some ways. But typically that's been a result of you having some sort of emotionally charged experience or some situation where you began seeing things differently. It was not because someone told you to see things differently or someone forced you to see things differently or where someone imposed their own way of looking at things onto you. Sometimes it can happen, but that is only when you, in and of yourself, open yourself up to it and allow yourself to be emotionally activated by it. Let's say if you're watching a movie or you're listening to a song or you have this mentor in your life. Sometimes if they say something, it can kind of hit a spark in you, right? Lighten a spark in you to begin seeing things differently. But you're the only one that can allow yourself and give yourself permission to begin expanding your consciousness like that. No one else can. And so if this is the case for you, then obviously it's the same for others. Typically it is, because we're human beings and we're very similar as far as expanding our consciousness is concerned like that. So being emotionally captivated, having enough conviction is essential to grow and expand our consciousness. And you can't, impose that onto others. Others can only do that for themselves. So the best thing to do to kind of limit the amount of suffering and frustration in your life is to put that energy in which you're trying to make someone see things the way that you see them, put that energy back into you, onto your evolution, onto the way that you show up. A lot of people can begin seeing things differently by observing others, by simply being in and around your energy field, being in and around the way that you see things and do things. A lot of high performers with perfectionism, though, can do one of two things. If you're around someone else that's very different to you, that might actually do things and say things and believe things that you did in the past and which you've evolved out of, what can happen is you either actually begin people pleasing. So you sculpt yourself back into the way you were in order to adapt to the situation, in order for you to not have all this frustration in your mind about how different you are. So you adapt yourself. You become a chameleon where you kind of take on a different mask or a different armor to fit in. So that is one way that you go about it, because you have expanded your consciousness. So you can, if you actually feel compelled to, or if you feel like you should fit in, you can actually shrink, and not shrink your consciousness, but you can go and see and kind of act from that lower level of consciousness, or that consciousness in which others have and you have had in the past. Make sense? So you can do that. However, that will cause you inauthenticity, because you know deep down that there's potential. There's different ways of kind of looking at the world, right? So that can cause inauthenticity, and then again, that can cause emptiness and numbness and all sorts of things to cope with that. The other way is you actually begin, forcing others to kind of come and expand their consciousness to the level of yours. And this is when you're blaming, you're shaming, you're guilt tripping, you are also kind of like prideful in a way about the way that you live, the way that you act, the way that you see the world. And neither of these strategies are going to work in the long term. Only stepping fully into your authenticity is going to work. And focusing your energy on your evolution and shining your light from that place and allowing for those around you to have their own journey, because they are their own individual. They have their own path as souls in their bodies. You see, you are not your body, right? You are a spiritual being having a human experience in a body. And so whatever you try to impose onto someone's flesh, so to speak, it won't necessarily stick, because they haven't been emotionally enough captivated or had enough consequences of their current way of seeing the world or living. A lot of people, they only grow when they see the consequences or negative consequences or disempowering consequences of the way that they act, or when they begin to see the patterns happen over and over and over again. That's when people simply change or grow. So to limit the amount of frustration you have in your life, put your energy back into your own evolution, your own growth. This is so much more empowering for you, for others. And you just have so much more peace. You're like, if someone doesn't see it the way that you see it, wonderful. That's all good. You can either choose to release them from your life so that they get to have their own journey. You can show up in your authenticity and see what that does to the dynamic. Or you can obviously stay inauthentic and sculpt yourself into who you were in the past, who you kind of embodied in the past, how you saw things differently in the past. You can become a chameleon. Or you can hustle and kind of blame and project and do all those sorts of things. So you have a choice here. Do you want to live from the place of forcing others, forcing yourself even? Do you want to live from that place, or do you want to live from the place of knowing your worthiness, knowing your evolution, your journey, and channeling that energy rather, and letting yourself attract circumstances, people, and events into your life that aligns with that? It's way more empowering, way more peaceful, just such a more balanced way of approaching life. And this is exactly what I support you with in the Bloom Beyond tribe. Being able to actually go beyond this tendency to force others to see the way you see things, in order to keep things together, in order to just make sure that, let's say, relationships survive, or force someone that's working for you or that you're working for to see the things the way that you see them in order to get some sort of outcome or result. Instead of doing that, I support you with being able to shift your mindset to that of allowing, that of basically accepting, that of putting your energy back onto you, onto your evolution, your journey. So go to bloombeyond.com/apply to apply, and we might see you on the other side for a free monthly cohort where you will get, chat support and coaching, and being able to also learn more about how perfectionism really manifests and how to work with your subconscious and all of this too, because this is indeed necessary for you to actually have this habit shift of going from forcing to allowing. So go to bloombeyond.com/apply to apply, and I might see you on the other side. Stay bright, stay brave, and stay balanced.